And welcome to the fourth episode of my Sound Design Here Create series. We're hopefully wrapping up the Sound for a Sculpture project. So a quick recap on what we've done so far and what we've been working with. Well, we've been working with this image of a sculpture and trying to work towards a prompt. The prompt is, here is a sculpture. Create the audio that would accompany it as part of an art installation. We came up with some ideas and then we moved on to coming up with some initial sounds to go with those ideas. And then a couple of those sounds we developed using synthesis. One of those is a wave type sound, and another one of those is a sound representing the sculpture, a very synthesized sound. Then two more sounds we developed using samples. One of them sampled from the base of two cups, a sort of ceramic grinding, scraping sound, and another one, the sound of water dripping into a bowl. So we've put these together, but we haven't really done any mix. We've just done basic sound design, and we haven't really mixed in terms of balanced them, but also in terms of made them fit more appropriately into the space. So there are a couple of things that we're going to do with respect to that mix. But so I made a quick render of a sort of walk through the space to use as a little bit of a guide. So this is what that looks like. So at the moment there's no sound, but it's my intention to use this as a reference when doing this mix, just to make sure that we're thinking along the right lines. And additionally, what I think I'll do is when I get the stereo master out of the door, we will then go back and add it to this animation. So then I'll publish this animation, including a sort of spatial audio representing what the experience in the space might be, were this the path that you were taking around the setup. So you can see I've tried to sort of move away, move closer, get close, get further away, circle around, and hopefully this will be reflected when the audio gets completed. So anyway, let's move on to the actual audio and the actual sound design, which is what we're here for. So back in Bitwig, with the project loaded, you may have noticed that I had a controller in front of me. This is a controller which I'd almost forgotten about, and then I realized that there's actually reasonable DAW integration, so it lets me control the mutes and the faders and various other parameters directly within Bitwig. So that's why that's on my table today. My primary Bitwig controller, by the way, is an Ableton Push, which I'm sure I will show you at some point. So in any case, let's refresh our memories by unmuting the parts. So probably I should name these a little bit better. Let's call this one Ocean. Let's call this one Sculpture. The word I used for this was Scrape. And then the last group is the drips. So I'm going to play it just to refresh our memory. So immediately I'm thinking, I quite like this scraping sound, but it's way in the back. And the ocean sound, we have two layers of audio that make that a sort of background hum and the actual waves. I'm wondering if I can bring the scraping sound forwards a little more and get rid of some of that background ocean noise. Next, the sound representing the sculpture feels a little bit too far back and a little bit too hidden. The dripping sounds, this reminds me of maybe a boy floating in the water. So I like that. I like the way that it works here. So we'll probably figure out how to give that some space and some distance, because I think that's what it really needs here. Okay, so of those things I described, let's go and do the first one. So let's go to this ocean sound. And we have this blend happening here. This is between the wave and the background. So this is with none of the background. This is about where it was. So I'm going to dial that back. So there's only a tiny bit of that background sound. And then I'll just solo these two. Then I'll try and balance this scraping sound. So consider that I'm overall making this too loud. And what I'm going to do is pull this all back. But for now, I just want to hear the relative levels, and then I'll tweak things once I think the sounds are okay. So let me pull both of those back. Okay, so let's unsolo those, and let's instead mute these drips. So this sculpture sound is sounding quite good, but I think I would like it to be a little bit more bold. So that's going to be the first real sound design change that I'm doing here. So how am I going to punch that up? And one way could be using some saturation. So let's get a saturator. Let's just go over the top with the drive. So notice that this is not just louder, it now has a bit more spectral content going on. So let's quieten it down a little. Okay, I think the balance is working a little bit better, so now I'm going to bring these drip sounds back. So for the drip sounds, I think the first thing I need, I like the way that it's filtered, I like the way that pushes it back, but I might experiment filtering it even a little more. Let's listen. Okay, so now I think that's working, but I need to push it back and I need to make it a bit more ambient so it feels a bit more distant. And what I'm thinking of doing for that would be a reverb, and specifically I'm going to try and use a wet reverb. So let me solo it just so we can hear it clearly. And in fact, let me put a little loop in place here. Maybe let's loop this bit. So that pushes it back quite far. So I might try adding another tool here, whoops, and increase the width. So let's try and Okay, so I think we're actually getting there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this animation and I'm going to play the audio over it just so we can see how it looks and sounds. Okay, so listening to that, I'm quite liking the way this is sounding. I think the drips, I've managed to push those back in a way that I'm quite happy with. The ocean sound, I think I quite like, and I like the way that balances against this scraping, which has become a sort of almost ghostly sound, which I'm quite pleased with. So I think what I'm really not quite happy with yet is this sculpture sound. So one of the things that I'm going to experiment with is some of the spectral processing that I have available. So let's try out the loudness split. I don't know if this is necessarily going to be ideal, but let me solo it so we can just preview. Interesting, so let's listen to the loudest parts. So we don't get that much in this loud band. So I'm going to make this a little narrower, pull this down a little. So what I'm trying to do is think of where I can make a change to the sound to add a bit more sort of a punch or impact to it. So what I'm thinking is I might add a delay just to this loud part. So intermittently, so we have that little delay coming out there. I think that works quite well. And let's listen in the quiet. So what I think I might do in the quiet is I might compress. So let's insert the compressor. Set the threshold low. In the mid, I'm tempted to try and add... Maybe I'm going to move this saturation to be only the mids. Let's solo. So now I've moved the saturation out. This is not really hitting the loud parts as much, so I'm going to pull these down a little. Okay, let's go back to the whole mix. Another thing I'm wondering about is, would it be nice if the scraping sound was ducked a little bit by this drip sound? So I might experiment with that, but if we're going to do that, let's put it before the reverb so the reverb tail continues. So let's add a dynamics processor and let's have a side chain from the drips post filter. So let's use it pre, it doesn't seem to be quite loud enough, and let's turn the gain up a little bit on it. So I'm going to solo just those two. So at the moment that's excessive, but that's fine. I just want to start with it quite strong, and then let's tweak the threshold. Okay, so that's going to allow this drip sound to just cut through a little bit more. Let's listen to the ocean sound. I'm considering, again, using a dynamics processor to let the sound, the sculpture sound, sing through the ocean a little bit more, but I feel like it would be easy to overdo, so let's just have a little listen to this and see how we're going. So this is from sculpture. Take the post. Just bring that way down for now. So we have a reverb in there. I'm gonna shuffle the dynamics processor to be before the reverb. Turn the drip sound down to the fraction. Okay, I think broadly I'm now happy with how this is working. So I'm going to play through with the animation showing once more. And if I'm happy with that, I think I'm going to call this complete. So let's see. Here we go. Okay, so I had a quick look at what was going on there. I think it's working fine. I think maybe if I was going to refine it a bit more, I might be thinking about putting something on the master bus. I may still add a little reverb to it before I combine it with the animation, just to give a better feel for being in a room as opposed to just being a sort of, plain dry audio, even though some of them have reverb as part of the sound design. In any case, I think that brings this series to a conclusion, apart from showing the finalized animation once I've rendered the audio out. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been enjoyable to you. I hope you'll join me for some more of the Sound Design Here Create series, but in any case, I'd like to say thank you very much for being here, and goodbye.